In Paris, under the morning light, the unthinkable happened. Thieves disguised as workers stormed the Louvre, shattered glass cases, and escaped with France's royal jewels in less than 8 minutes. Days later, 2 men were caught, one at the airport, trying to flee to Africa. But the treasures remain missing, and the mystery only deepens. They say history repeats itself, but this time, it came wearing a construction vest. On a crisp October morning in Paris, the calm air around the Louvre, home to the world's greatest art, was shattered by the sound of breaking glass. Within minutes, France's most prized jewels, symbols of its royal heritage, were gone. The precision of the operation stunned investigators. It was quick, efficient, and bold, so daring that it felt almost cinematic. But this wasn't fiction. It was a real heist that shook France to its core. The robbery unfolded with military precision. 4 men arrived in what looked like an ordinary furniture truck. Dressed as maintenance workers, they blended seamlessly with the morning routine. Tourists were just beginning to enter the Louvre. Staff were scattered through the museum's vast halls, and no one suspected a thing. Using a hydraulic lift, 2 men scaled up to a first-floor balcony in the Galerie d'Apollon, a room that glitters with centuries of royal history. With power tools, they broke through a window and slipped inside. Within seconds, display alarms screamed as glass shattered and centuries-old artifacts vanished into duffel bags. They weren't after random pieces, they knew exactly what to take. The crown of Empress Eugenie, a diamond-encrusted brooch, and jewels once worn by France's emperors and empresses. In less than 4 minutes, they were gone. Outside, scooters waited. The thieves disappeared through the narrow Parisian streets before the first police car even arrived. The entire operation, from entry to escape, took under 8 minutes. One artifact, a royal crown, fell during the rush, cracking as it hit the stone steps. It was the only clue left behind in what looked like a ghost operation. When police finally arrived, they found a scene of chaos. Broken glass, alarmed tourists, and a museum staff in disbelief. The Louvre, one of the most heavily guarded museums in the world, had just been robbed in daylight hours. As the shock settled, investigators realized this wasn't an amateur job. This was orchestrated by professionals who understood the museum's layout, knew where security cameras were placed, and likely had inside knowledge. France's cultural minister called it a national embarrassment. The president himself described it as an attack on the soul of France. For the French, the Louvre isn't just a museum. It's a symbol of identity, power, and pride. To have its royal treasure stolen felt like history itself had been violated. Within hours, the French police launched one of the most extensive art crime investigations in decades. Over 100 officers were assigned to the case. Surveillance footage from across Paris was collected. Every license plate, every face near the Louvre that morning was analyzed. DNA traces, fingerprints, even hair strands were pulled from the scene. The French prosecutor, Louvre warned the press to stay silent about early leads. Too much information, she said, could tip off others still at large. But leaks began surfacing anyway, and whispers of international escape plans started spreading. It didn't take long for investigators to catch their first break. Acting on intelligence that 2 suspects were planning to flee France, police moved quickly. One man was caught at Charles de Gaulle Airport just moments before boarding a flight to Algeria. The second was arrested hours later in the Paris region. Both men were known to police, linked to previous thefts and organized crime networks. But if authorities hoped the arrests would end the mystery, they were mistaken. The stolen jewels were nowhere to be found. And both suspects, while connected to the operation, were likely not the masterminds.
The Louvre heist had clearly been planned by a larger network. Authorities suspect it involved financiers, middlemen, and possibly international art traffickers. Interpol was alerted. Stolen artifact alerts were issued across Europe and North Africa. The jewels, worth millions, could be broken down, sold as loose stones, or hidden until the heat cooled off. For investigators, time was the enemy. Every passing day meant a smaller chance of recovery. But the heist exposed something deeper than missing jewels. It revealed how vulnerable cultural institutions have become. France's museums, like many around the world, have faced budget cuts and security downsizing for years. The Louvre, once guarded like a fortress, had reduced its security staff and postponed upgrades to its surveillance systems. Several cameras around the gallery that morning had been offline for maintenance. The thieves knew exactly when to strike. It was a perfect storm of opportunity and negligence. Public anger exploded. How could the Louvre, with its billion-dollar collection, have such blind spots? Reports leaked that the museum's director, Laurence Decaux, had offered to resign. The government promised reforms, new technology, more guards, and a complete overhaul of museum security nationwide. But for many, the damage was already done. The crime wasn't just about the jewels, it was about trust. If the Louvre wasn't safe, what was? Beyond France, the story reverberated across Europe. The heist highlighted the growing black market for stolen art and antiquities, an underground world where cultural treasures are traded like currency. In some circles, buyers are not wealthy collectors, but criminal organizations that use art as collateral or for laundering money. With one suspect caught trying to flee to Africa, investigators are now exploring whether the operation had links to smuggling routes stretching beyond Europe. The geopolitics of art theft is messy, often entangled with corruption, war economies, and illicit trade networks. With one jewel stolen from Paris, it can end up in Dubai, Moscow, or Hong Kong within days. Meanwhile, the French media has been relentless. Every day brings a new headline, new leaks, new theories, new suspects. Some speculate that one of the Louvre's subcontracted maintenance workers might have supplied key access details. Others believe the heist was funded by an unknown buyer who ordered specific pieces in advance. What's clear is that this was not a random act of greed. It was strategic, deliberate, and disturbingly professional. For now, 2 men sit in custody, facing interrogation. Under French law, investigators have 96 hours to build their case before pressing charges. Forensic experts are combing through data, trying to reconstruct the thieves' movements minute by minute. But officials admit that much of the stolen treasure may already be beyond reach. Jewels of this caliber are easily disassembled, stones reset, and metals melted down. Once altered, even the most advanced forensic analysis can't trace them back to the Louvre. But the symbolic loss may be greater than the material one. These were not just objects, they were fragments of France's identity, remnants of empires, revolutions, and centuries of artistry. Their theft cuts deep because it feels personal, almost existential. It challenges the nation's ability to protect its legacy. And in a world where culture is power, such a breach carries consequences far beyond museum walls. Still, investigators remain determined. Special art crime units across Europe are on alert. French intelligence agencies are monitoring financial networks, searching for any sign of movement or sale. Rumors suggest that at least one jewel has resurfaced in Belgium, though authorities refuse to confirm it. Whether true or not, it adds another layer to a story that's already rich in intrigue. For now, the Louvre's empty glass cases stand as a reminder of what's been lost and what remains unknown. Somewhere, the missing jewels lie hidden, passing from hand to hand, wrapped in secrecy and risk. And until they return, the story of the Louvre heist will continue to fascinate, frustrate, and fuel speculation. Because this wasn't just a theft, it was a statement, a reminder that even in an age of cameras, data, and high-tech security, human audacity can still outsmart the system. It's a story about ambition, power, and the fine line between genius and crime. If you found this story as gripping as the heist itself, make sure to hit like and subscribe. The world of global affairs and hidden power moves fast, and here you'll never miss the stories that shape our world.